Okay, we're going to get started on step one of our little build here. Something I wanted to show you. I had done a video earlier about buying a $1.25 cuticle trimming kit, and so far the nail clipper and the tweezers and our little sanding stick work out just fine, but you kind of get what you pay for with the scissors. So they broke right away, so these aren't going to be any good for me, so we're going to just put those out of the picture. But anyways, the other parts are good, and I've done a little bit of sanding and a little bit of touch up, and I got my sanding sticks, and we're going to just use that to give that a try. I've already taken the little pieces off the sprue, the little they call them dual wheel arms. So something I noticed though is if you look at these, the pegs the axles aren't very deep, and if you take a look and you notice, the wheels themselves are actually a little bit too thick. So if you want eventually to make this like here, I'll try and do a sample real quick. If I take this and put this through here, there's not very much space on there. Let's see if I can get it to focus for me, where it's going to allow those caps to let this spin freely. So there's going to be a lot of sanding that someone would have to do if you want to motorize this, or you want to make these bogies spin on here. I may go ahead and do that just because I want to do that. A younger person probably won't think of that, so I don't think there's anything wrong with just gluing this on. So if you take that, like on this piece right here, we can go ahead and focus in a little bit, and we'll move that right there. So the center cap would go right here, and that one actually, I'll move it up here a little bit, that one has enough of a lip on it that the little, the little caps, these little caps right here that help the wheel spin are going to work. So we're going to have an operable suspension on this little vehicle. So we could actually have it in a multiple pose. It's just the wheels will need some extra work and some sanding if you want the whole mechanism to be able to turn. So far I'm really missing my X-Acto knife, but I said I was going to do this, with something like a smaller person might be able to do. So I've noticed it actually works really well. I've got a little bit of flashing on this edge right here. You can kind of see it maybe a little bit better on that back side right there. So just by doing a little bit of sanding, it actually takes it off very well. And with just a little bit of touch up, and then using the fine side, wiping it off, you can get some really nice, some nicer edges instead of taking that X-Acto and cutting it out or scraping it out. I'll be able to do that with these flashing lines on the ends, and also making the pegs fit a little better, being careful. So we can sand those down with our sanding stick if we want to do something like that. So I'm going to go ahead and get some of these wheels sanded down and put everything together in this assembly, and then by the end of this, I should have step one done. So I thought I'd try and film how I'm doing these little bogey wheels here. So you want to make sure you have the right ones on this. You'll notice these have little bumps on the side. So these are the sprockets that are going to go on the already established pins on the right here. So the other ones are the flush mounted ones, and here's how I'm doing those. Let's see. So we're just going to take it and I'm just going to twist it off. And then I'm taking my nail clipper and I'm going to snip that little bit of flash off. And I take my sanding file. In this case, I can probably just use I'll use the heavy side first, real light. And then I'll flip it over, kind of work it flush and sand it down. And then check the front to make sure there's no flash on it. And we just dropped it, but I saved it. And and then that will just go onto the bogey wheel right here. Now I decided to go ahead and just glue these. So the next step on this one, I'm going to grab my little caps over here. It's actually this style with the 4 bolts on it, part number 3. We're going to take that off, and it's hard to see. They're hard to hold. You have to be careful so you don't lose them, but there's just a little bit of sprue stuck on there. I can trim that off with my nail clipper, give it a little brush with the sanding stick, and then I'm just going to go ahead and glue it. So we've got this right here. I'm just going to make these inoperable, and with my glue, a little bit on there like so, and then we can take this, put our cap on. There might be enough of a bump on there. I want to make sure that's centered. And we have our, whoa, we have our completed little hub right there. So I'm going to do the rest of these, and then I'll show you what I finish up with. So here we have completed sub-assembly number 1. So all this is now complete, and we'll move on to step number 2. So most of these are going to be pretty much locked down. I think I got a few of them that may still be loose, but the nice thing is going to be I'll have the suspension that can move up and down. This one's a little bit tighter, but if I want to display it in a certain way, I may be able to do that. So there you have it. I'm just going to take these and lay them flat just in case I did get a little bit of glue in there, and move on to step 2. So as far as fitting the parts together, they actually go together pretty nice. So there's a little bit of a bevel right here, and that fits into this notch and sits on these little pads in there. And the back part, actually without any sanding, it just pretty much will fit right in there. You might have to do a little bit of adjustment on the front, but it'll pretty much just snap right in. I might have to hold it together, but it should glue together really nicely. So we've got the one side will go here, the other side like so, and then the bottom piece will go over the top of these and sit on these little frames here. And here we have step number 2 complete. So it makes for a nice sturdy little tank model with a good feel to it. So here we go. Let's move on to step 3. So I thought I'd show a little video of how I'm dealing with these tracks. They're very tiny and they're hard to work with. So I'm just taking my nail clipper and I'm just cutting them off, just like so. And I've decided that I'm going to take care of the bigger flash and just take these little notches and not worry about this little stuff like right here. There's just too much of it, and unless it really shows, I might try to cut a little bit off, but I'm just gonna loop this around. And the way this works is this pin, it goes, there's one hole and there's one pin, a rubber pin that goes through there, and it's very difficult to get to slide through there. So you can pull it through. On the other one, I actually kind of messed up a little bit here. But I'm just going to go ahead and use some super glue to go ahead and just seal it up and use it. I've got this Bob Smith Industries tire glue. I'm going to try that first, and if that doesn't work, I'll just try some regular super glue. So I'm almost done with step 3 over here. I wanted to show you the turret that we have, and it's kind of a neat, kind of a looking turret. It went together very well, and it even has operating hatches, which I guess it depends on which way you fold them. We can close that, and then this hatch folds down as well. So that's kind of a nice option. The problem with that is these hinges right here that they have, that you snap the doors into. They required quite a bit of cleaning out of flash in there. So for an advanced modeler, I could see that not being a big issue, but for a young person, that might be a bit of a bigger issue. The hinges are actually molded into the turret, and so to get those in there, you actually have to cut out some of the flash that's in the hinge area. And so I had to break out the X-Acto knife to get that cleared out. And something better, I don't know if anyone does any reviews on these, but if you're building it or you're helping your youngster build it, just have that in mind. You know, something you could always do is just cut those off and just snap the hatches in place as well. But it is kind of a neat feature that you can open them and close them as you like. So of an older kit like this, the operating features in that nature are pretty cool. So I'm going to just close that up. And then I'm having a heck of a time with the tracks. So I initially had tried this rubber. I thought, oh yeah, it's rubber, I'll use tire glue. No, that doesn't work, it won't dry. So then I thought, well, I'll go to super weld. I had some success with this on one previously, and that didn't work. So I even broke out this old thing of shoe goo that I've used on slot cars and things like that to put together bodies. And you end up with something that looks like this. Now it's actually pretty solid. It's solidified pretty well. But what I ended up doing is, like the track that I actually got onto this one, I couldn't get it to fit. So what I ended up doing is an old technique that I saw in a, I think it was online. I just looked it up. How do you deal with vinyl tracks? And I just stapled it. And it's a little bit bent out of shape here, but once you roll it on its side and you tuck it up underneath into a bogey wheel, it actually disappears. So I would probably do that option. Just get it together and staple it with, for the kid, for a youngster, for the advanced modeler, it's a little bit different. But that's how I'm dealing with the tracks. I'm gonna go ahead and staple this other one real quick, and then we'll just go with it. So if we look here, I've got my old swing line, and I'm just gonna, a lot of folks will have one at home, but I'm gonna make sure it's centered up on the in the center, and make sure where the tracks actually come out is lined up. Give it a punch, and let's see how we did. So, and there you have it. Oh, going this way. So I think, and that'll hold that track. You know, this is kind of ugly, but it could be covered up with some black paint and or mud. It could be mudded up if I did a diorama eventually. But I think that's probably the easiest way to deal with these old skinny tracks. Just put a staple in it. And, well, if you do, when you do yours, good luck. So that's what I'm finding is going to work for this particular build. So here we have our completed assembly 3. It actually is a nice, you know, little tank kit. Oh, we want some tracks. We'll get them back in there, in the groove there. And so it actually makes for a nice little tank. And we just did that. It took me a little while to get this together, but what a good way to spend a sick day, you know, putting that together. And it makes for a nice, easy, relatively quick build. Some of the things I do want to show folks is if you look real closely on the hatch right here, there's a lot of these hatches that were on the turret that have these round flashing marks and mold marks in them. From an advanced modeler critique, I would say that's not the most, you know, it's undesirable, but from a kid standpoint, it's just fine. So a lot of the, like this top hatch had the same thing, and this top hatch here did. So it would require some sanding, but overall, you know, if you wanted to, you could make it as detailed or as not as detailed as you want. Tank complete. Now we'll get on to paint. Okay, now it's time to go ahead and do a little bit of minimal painting on our tank. So you can kind of see it's really not too bad just by itself, but it could use a little bit of contrast, and yeah, it could use a little color on there. I'm not going to paint the whole body, even though I could brush paint it. There's several different camouflage styles that you could paint this tank, and all of them could be brush painted real easy. It's not a big tank, so if you didn't have access to an airbrush, which a younger person may not be able to use quite yet, and you just wanted to brush paint it, you could do it very easy. So if you want to find out like different colors, basically you can follow the instructions, which show that overall it should be a light olive green. And then alternate schemes, it could be light olive green with patches of dark green and red, brown, patches of dark green and red, brown, separated actually with yellow stripes in between the colors. And so where you can get that information, it's really nice. We have the internet. So they don't have the camouflage, you know, paint on this one, and not even on the regular other pictures, but you can go on the internet and on YouTube, and here's a couple of samples of different colors of Chiha tanks. So you type in Chiha in the search window, and you can come up with, you know, any number of different camouflage styles. So what we are going to do is just do some light detail painting on this one. So if we look on here, so the machine gun barrels and tracks, the tracks over here are going to be gunmetal gray, or just gunmetal. So just to keep this on our minimalist standpoint, I actually found some gunmetal gray, this Folk Art craft paint. These run from 50 cents to $1. So we're going to go ahead and use just this regular old craft paint. So I found my gunmetal gray. The tires on the wheels are going to be dark gray. So these wheels right here are actually, they have a rubber coating on them that ran on the tracks. So these little outside edges are going to be, instead of metal, they're going to be a dark gray color. And we just happened to find the dark gray. So I'm going to use actually this gray because it's the color they specify. But when you go look at these craft paints in the store, there's so many different shades. So if you think there's a gray that looks better, a darker gray or a lighter color gray, you can use any gray you want. It's still going to cost you 50 cents or $1, maybe. So, and then the last one, the exhaust pipes on the back here, they're specifying that they're a dark red brown. Well, we have some brown oxide. So I didn't have any red brown type paint, but I'm going to use this brown. And to augment everything, I went ahead and got some black. So I have a little bit of black craft paint. And also for, you know, any rust on the mufflers, I might add a little bit of this. It's called Pueblo, but it's an orange color and it'll represent rust if I decide to do that. So that's the paint part of it. These brushes that I have, I've got 3 different brushes. I've got kind of a fine detail brush right here. I've got a mid-grade, mid-level size brush. And then I've got a bigger one that I can use for painting the whole thing, or these are actually pretty good for dry brushing, which is not a concept that a young person wouldn't be able to grasp. As far as dry brushing goes, barely just putting little highlights on the model. So 3 brushes, they all come in a big craft pack that you can get at craft stores or, you know, in the art section at your local store. So other things I'll be needing, I've got just a paper towel for wiping things down, cleaning up. I've got a piece of what they call parchment paper. I'm going to go ahead and make a wet palette. You don't need to do it this way, but I'm going to make my own little wet palette. And this is just parchment paper for cooking. It's not the wax paper, but it's just like more of a low stick paper they use for cooking. And this will be wetted down and I'll be able to keep my paint a little bit better when I go ahead and put it on here. And I've just got an old plate. This is a throwaway kind of a plastic plate that you know, is not going to hurt if I have to throw this away, or I can use it again. So we'll just do that. So that's it. I'm going to go ahead and get started, and as I start painting things and I see things that are appropriate to show you, I'll do it. Okay, we're complete with the painting that I'm going to do on this tank. So we'll kind of bring it up and you can kind of take a look at it. And that's what we have. All that we did on it was painted some gunmetal on the tracks, a little bit of gray on the wheels, brown, a little bit of brown rust mixture on the mufflers. I touched up the antenna. On the very end, I put the gun barrel black there, and there we have it. So it's pretty good. Little kid. It's not going to win any model show winners, but since we've just built this for our kid, or a kid has just built this, I think it's pretty darn good. So from here, after we're going to clean up all this, then we're going to put on some decals, and this build is done. From here, we're going to put on some decals or decals. Let's go ahead and we'll do the old Japanese flag first. I'm not going to use any special adhesive or anything. So that's it. That's the completed build for our kind of a minimalist build, classic build, whatever you want to call it. Just something to do while I'm waiting to get over my cold. And something that maybe a kid could do instead of playing video games. So there's our finished tank. Get a good close look at it there. And kind of a fun build, a simple build. The Atlantis kit goes together very well with a minimal amount of parts. There are a few things that need to be worked on or that need some advanced working. So the 14 and over age is probably pretty appropriate. But now I'll let these decals dry, or decals. More language. I've seen some places they call them decals, and other places they call them decals. I've always called them decals. But anyways, we'll just leave our tank there, and I'll finish up with some photos. I might put a spray, matte spray over the top of it, just to kind of seal in the decals. And I think we'll call this one done. Thanks for watching.